Kun. All praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai for another mighty Shabbat. All praises to the Most High for another W5 history lessons. Za'abayala
Brother Marquaz.
coming back at you with another W5 history through the Spirit, touching on Noah's Ark and Lot's wife. Touching on Noah's Ark and Lot's wife, and why? Because obviously, history repeats itself, and when we go into the history, we can learn, from now and in the future. The Lord destroyed the earth the first time with the flood. These things are real. Was it real? We're going to go into it and show you that it's real. The Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Was it real? We know it's real. And the Lord is going to do the same thing all over again, right? The Lord is going to do the same thing all over again, this time with fire, right? And the Lord says it's going to be a memorial. You're going to see it. Let me pull this up real quick. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 13. Let me kick it off of Isaiah, chapter 13. And I'm going to start at verse number 19. And Babylon, right, talking about America, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And a lot of people question, well, was Sodom and Gomorrah real? Was that a real place? Did that actually happen? Did Lot's wife really turn into a pillar of salt? Well, the Lord's telling you he's going to overthrow America like Sodom and Gomorrah. So to show that these things are real, we're going to go into the history, right? And we're going to see the evidence to show that these things actually happened and did exist. And what did the Lord say? It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. And that's how America is going to be. Like Sodom and Gomorrah. Nobody built back up Sodom and Gomorrah. You can't take a plane ticket to Sodom and Gomorrah and say, man, this is where the Lord, look at Lot's wife over there. And, and you're going grocery shopping. It's over with. Verse 21. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. Her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Right? America's time is near to come, and her days are not going to be extended upon this earth. Once the Lord enacts judgment, that's it. But the point is, the Lord said it's going to be like when he overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. We'll go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 11. 1 Corinthians. So we have to go into the history to show that these things will come to pass again. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse number 11. Now all these things happen unto them for examples. So Sodom and Gomorrah happened for an example for us to learn, to understand what they did, to understand the judgment of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, how to avoid that judgment. And it says, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. And guess what? The ends of the world have come upon us. This is for our admonition. When we talk about Noah's Ark and the Lord saved 8, the Lord only saved Noah, his wife, and his sons and his wives, right? And all the beasts. No one else destroyed the earth. The Lord's going to destroy it again with nuclear missiles. All right, let me get the book of 2 Peter chapter 3. Let's prove that the Lord is going to destroy this place with nuclear missiles. This is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse number 10. Actually, let's jump down. Yep. It says, verse 7, but the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. So the Lord said this earth is reserved, has a reservation for fire. Just like in the ancient world, the earth had a reservation for water. For who? For the perdition of ungodly men. But beloved, be not ignorant as of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Right. The Noah was out there preaching for almost 100 years that the Lord is about to destroy the earth. And that's what we doing, telling people to repent and come back to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. But what? But the day of the Lord shall come as a thief in the light, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements, right? And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. And that's what we know is nuclear missiles, because what causes elements to melt? Atoms, right? Splitting. That's how you get nuclear bombs. You got things, yeah. The Lord he got that in reserved for judgment for America and for the earth. And it says the earth also and the works that are therein shall be burnt up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking forward and hasting unto the coming of the day of the Most High, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. So these nuclear missiles is coming to destroy America. We're going to look at how the Lord destroyed the earth in ancient times, get the evidence behind that these things actually happen, and it's going to help build your faith to understand that the Lord will do these things again just by fire. But you got it.
Yeah, that's right. Like how the brother said, we learn from the days of old. And, back in those ancient times, you deal with Noah's Ark. You deal with Sodom and Gomorrah. Those are some of the two biggest events that the Lord ever had, take place. So and those two events that impacted, mankind. We talking about the whole earth was wiped away and the Lord saved 8 souls. Every nation has records of, the so-called flood. All right, you got Sodom and Gomorrah. The Lord rained fire and brimstone from from the heavens. Lord sent chariots throughout the land and burnt up the whole land so bad to where even to this day, there's no greenery in that land. So the things that we about to go over, so they understand that the Most High is bringing back those same spirits of great death and mourning back on the earth. We see it right now with Iran and Israel and America and all these countries. They getting into it. Everybody's saying that this is the beginning of World War III. And like how the brother just read in 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, verse 10 on out, the Most High is going to have that same spirit of great death upon the earth, just like it had during the days of Noah. It's going to have fire rain down from heaven. It's like it had in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, right, when Lot was around. Those same spirits are going to be presented again. So let's go to Luke 17 and verse number 26. Start at verse 25. Even when you read the precepts, you read how the Lord always is comparing, Sodom and Gomorrah coupled with Noah's Ark. Greatly paraphrasing. All right, the Lord always has those two accounts right next to each other. So this is Luke chapter 17 and verse start at 25. It says, but first must he suffer many things and be rejected of his generation. And as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. So just like how it was in the days of Noah, it's gonna be like that in the days when Yahweh shall return. It says, and as it was, it's like verse 27. It says they did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage. It's like, yeah. Okay, come on. I'm reading verse 27 again. It says they did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And that's how it's going to be in the last days. All right, men right now are eating and drinking. Here it is, all hell breaking loose. You still have men that are just being negligent of what's going on in the world. Like everything's, fine, and they're brushing it off as if, oh, it's always been war in the Middle East. It's nothing new. Nobody's worried. Nobody's, trying to get themselves right in the world. So it's that same spirit. And just like how the Lord caught off that old generation and he caught them by surprise, the Lord's going to catch this same generation in like fashion. So reading on, it says, verse 28, it says, likewise also, it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. Like I said, the Lord is always comparing the days of Noah and the days of Lot together. They always go hand in hand, because in both accounts, the Lord is raining great judgment upon the earth. And the days to come is going to be in that like manner. So now he's speaking about Lot. He was doing the same thing, same spirit. Verse 29, it says, but the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. They didn't say it destroyed some of them. They didn't say it destroyed 50%, 25%, 90%, 99%. No, it said it destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in a day when the Son of Man is revealed. It's going to be in that exact same spirit when Yahweh shall return. It says in that day, he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Meaning, remember the things that's coming upon the earth. I remember the judgments. Remember Lot's wife as she turned back. Don't be like that woman. Don't turn back. Don't be fantasizing about, this place and the pleasure and the luxury, of this world. Like how Lot's wife was, just like how the man during the time of Lot was. Remember Lot's wife. So again, these two accounts, they always go back to back. Let's go to 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4. Let's go to 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse number 4. All right, the 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse number 4. It says, for if God spare not the angels that sin, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into the chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world. Here it is again. And spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in a flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the city. Look here, so again, here go Noah in that account. Then it's coupling with what? And turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after shall live ungodly. Again, you got Noah and you got Lot. Same two spirits again. Same two accounts, always going back to back. Why? Because these plagues are coming again in like fashion. It says, and deliver just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked, for that righteous man dwelling among them, and seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. All right, so that's it. That's all I had on that. We can kick it off.
So I'm gonna pull this one up real quick. Actually, I'm gonna pull this up first. It's a little bit shorter, but it says geographer says evidence remains inconclusive at Noah's Ark link site, and they're gonna show you kind of where they think it will be, and it's gonna link up with this article from Fox News, right? And it says the ceramic fragments were found near the Duin Pinar formation, right? This is in 2007, right? And it says a Turkish geographer has urged caution over recent media reports suggesting that pottery for fragments discovered near a boat-shaped geological formation is in eastern Turkey could confirm the existence of Noah's Ark, saying the findings are preliminary and require further scientific study, right? Because if you can look right here, this is a picture of what they were saying would be Noah's Ark, right? And then this article will go, kind of go hand in hand with what's being brought out. All right, I'm gonna jump down real quick on this one because it's gonna explain it a lot further. This one's a little bit more shorter. I'm gonna use this one. And it says a group of international researchers say they're getting closer and closer to identify the possible remains of Noah's Ark, and new test results are promising. The focus on the research, the Duinpar site in eastern Turkey was identified in the 1950s, right? So not that long ago in the 1950s, they identified this. Let me know if you can hear this, King. I'm gonna play this video. Okay, Khan, all praise. You can hear it on the screen. So this is what they would say, will outline kind of, the outline of Noah's Ark. I remember they say this is in eastern Turkey. And from the shape of it, it does look like a boat. It doesn't look like a footprint. It's not a dinosaur's footprint. It looks, kind of in similar comparison to the shape of what a boat would look like. A very large scale ship. Khan, you get the imagery. You jump down. All praise to the Most High, man. That video, you can hear it. And it says, for decades, it has been speculated that the boat-shaped site once harbored Noah's Ark, but they're saying no definite proof has emerged. Now, an organization called Noah's Ark Scans, they have a whole organization dedicated to this, believes that recent soil samples point towards the site once housing ancient wood. All right, because he used certain wood to help build and seal up that ark. Right. It says researchers collected soil samples from the site last September and analyzed them through this winter. The results show significantly higher levels of organic matter and potassium compared to surrounding areas, according to a research statement from the organization. And it says those results provide compelling evidence of a unique, potentially man-made structure beneath the surface, distinct from the surrounding mudflow, Noah's Ark Scan. So they got a whole organization attached to seeing if Noah's Ark is real. And they said, hey, this is compelling evidence, right? This is some, some real stuff that ark was man-made beneath the surface. And again, showing you this is a very large entity, right? Look at it compared to the trees, compared to the surrounding terrain of the land, right? From NoahArkScans.com, right? And they kind of have another comparison right here, right? Jump down. It says these findings suggest the presence of a decayed wood or other more organic materials consistent with a large ancient structure preserved within the mudflow. This statement added. Lead archaeological researcher Andrew Jones told Fox News Digital that researchers are registering 2.72 times more carbon inside the boat-shaped object, right? So inside this shape, there's 2 times, almost 3 times the amount of carbon that's within here. That's how they think it's, the wood, right? And it says compared to, right, because trees suck up carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So they think it's obviously the wood that has a lot more carbon and stored in it. It says compared to its immediate outside location. Next one, the soil composition is markedly different from the natural mud flow, indicating something extraordinary at this site. The rotting ancient wood inside the boat-shaped area is likely creating a localized soil microenvironment by lowering pH, increasing organic matter, and elevating potassium, he said. Right? Rotting wood directly contributes to soil organic matter. So he's saying, yeah, so it has to be wood within that space, right? Because it says there's increasing organic matter, and guess what? Rotting wood directly contributes to that. So there was wood inside this part right here. There is wood, more carbon, right, within this outline right here. So they're emphatically saying, or they're sure that this is and would be Noah's Ark. All right. And it says in a statement, soil scientist William Crabtree said the results indicate something extraordinary. Yeah, this is divine by the Most High God. Of course, it's going to be extraordinary, and we're going to get into it too. In Genesis, the 7th chapter, Most High willing. Kind of read the account for those that are not familiar with Noah's Ark or the Lord flooding the earth. It says the soil composition is markedly different from the natural mud flow, indicating something extraordinary at this site, Crabtree said. But not all proof of the hypothesis is scientific. The 515-foot long formation, formation aligns exactly with biblical dimensions of Noah's Ark. So they say this is the exact thing, even though it's not scientific. You can't make this up. It outlines the exactly with the dimensions written in the Holy Scriptures. Let me actually get this real quick and note in the book of Genesis, chapter 7. So this is the account of what the Lord said he's going to flood this earth. This Genesis chapter 7 verse 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of the beasts that are clean, not clean by two, the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the floods of the waters was upon the earth. Verse 7. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him into the ark, because the waters of the flood. Of every clean beast, and of every beast that are not clean, and of the fowls, and everything that creepeth upon the earth, there went in two and two unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as the Most High had commanded Noah. So you can read this account in the 8th chapter as well, and the Lord showing you the Lord flooded the earth, man, with the water. And they believe, going back to it, that this would be the remnant of Noah's Ark, a 515-foot long structure. Let me jump down. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 7, verse 19. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail. So it shows you how high the waters prevail, right? How high the waters was. And the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of the beast and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, and whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of heaven. And they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed upon the earth 115 days. So Noah and his family made it. Everybody else died. So the point was that you can see, you can read about this account, and they're linking this up to Genesis 7 and Genesis chapter 8. What you got again?
Colin, you go to Genesis 6 and verse 14. I want to touch on that part where it spoke about the wood, because remember, the Lord, he commanded Noah to use a specific type of wood. All right, he didn't use box tree woods. He didn't use, pine tree woods. He didn't use your average wood from I don't know, wherever you get your wood from, right? Home Depot. So this is Genesis 6, right, verse 14. It says, make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and thou shalt pitch it within and without pitch. And in this fashion which thou shalt make of it, the length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. So the Lord, he even instructed Noah how this ark should be built, how long it should be, the width. He gave him the directions, gave him the blueprint. It says, a window shalt thou make to the ark, and in the cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, it says, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. So, and we actually going, you can look up real quick, look up the durability of gopher wood, or the strength of gopher wood. Because again, in the article, it mentioned how this wood, they still seen fragments of this wood. How 4,000 years later, right? 3,000 years later, we can still see findings of these things. Here it is. That ark, when Noah was on Earth, that was years ago, centuries and centuries ago, thousands of years ago. But yet, still certain parts of the ark is still there to this day. That shows how durable that ark really was. And people saying, "Oh, how can something so old endure a storm that bad?" Say it's all of the most. Here it is. The wood is still there. That lets you know how durable it was. So it says gopher wood, right? Used to build Noah's Ark is generally understood to be highly durable, strong, and water-resistant timber. Often identified with cypress, cedar, or a pitch-coated resinous wood. It is described as a perfect balance of immense strength and moderate weight, capable of resisting decay in extreme marine conditions. That's gopher wood right there. So the Lord, he didn't just put a whole bunch of tree types in that hat, close his eyes, kind of just pick out one and just said, okay, you're gonna use this one. But the Lord specifically chose that gopher wood because how durable it is. And no, he used that wood, and that wood is so good that even to this day they still see fragments of it. It's not decayed, it's not well, it is decayed, but the point is it's still fragments of it. If it was any type of weak wood or from any tree that you see outside your house, there would be no remainings of it. But again, it shows how the Lord know what He's talking about, and we still see fragments and proof of it to this day. All right, can you jump down a verse? Let's go back to Genesis 6. I'm read on. Genesis 6 and verse 17. It says, and behold, even I do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. And keep this in mind as we read this, because we're gonna go over most I will. Other nations, other civilizations have similar accounts to the flood as well. And it's gonna sound like exactly what we read and what we're going over. Verse 18. It says, but with thee I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. All right, so you can go into we can go to the next article.
See what you have. That's our lot's wife. Want this one?
Yeah. So you can start at the top. All right, so this is a flood, right? A flood of myths and stories. So when you go into the article, when you go into history in general, study different ancient civilizations, you see how a lot of ancient civilizations, they have similar stories of the flood. Now, you may say, okay, how come every nation has, similar stories to the flood? Thought the Lord is only dealing with Israel. We just read in Genesis 6, the Lord only made a covenant with Noah. How come every nation knows about this? You have to remember, Noah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. They were on the ark with Noah, them and their wives. Those 3 individuals branched off and became nations in their own respective areas that the Lord sent them to. And the flood is such a great event that happened, that took place, that those 3 individuals, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, they told it to their kids, and their kids told it to their kids. These nations, all of them have now an account of the flood, right? And all of it, of course, it's not going to be as on point as the Bible. They're going to add their respective gods and their, their own theology within it. But you see how a lot of these accounts do line up. So it says, actually, you can scroll down. I'm not going to start at that top part. Start at where it's mentioned Mesopotamia. You can keep scrolling. Yeah, there you go, right there. All right, so it says ancient Mesopotamia.
It's going. Why is this panic coming down?
See that? So it says ancient Mesopotamia, right? It says perhaps the oldest flood stories, or perhaps the oldest flood story is one of the earliest stories known to man, the Epic of Gilgamesh, recorded on 12 stone tablets This is among the first pieces of literature in history. So the Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest pieces of literature. No, you're gonna hear a lot of people say, okay, it's older than the Bible, so that means, since it predates the Bible, then that means it's better than it or whatnot. But what people fail to understand is that, Noah and the sons of God, Adam, individuals that's recorded in the Bible live way, prior to Gilgamesh, to the these different ancient Mesopotamian kingdoms like Babylon and Acadia and things of that nature. Nonetheless, seeing that Gilgamesh he lived after those individuals like Noah, going on, he had his own account of the flood that was passed down from uh Shem, Japheth rather, right? Because he's Japheth. Right, to go back to Japheth. So this is according to the poem of Gilgamesh, was a Sumerian king who reigned for 126 years. And this also proves that back then men lived for a very long time. People read Genesis and say, well, all these men they lived for 900 years, 800 years, 600 years. The Bible's not real. Here it is, Gilgamesh. He ruled for 126 years in itself. And it said that's how long he was alive. It said that's how long he reigned for. So imagine how much older he actually was. So men back then they did live for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Nonetheless, it says this might seem a bit hard to swallow, but Methuselah lived to be 969 years, right? The oldest man recorded in the Bible, if I'm not mistaken, right? Methuselah. It says making Gilgamesh look like a toddler in the grand scheme of things. After the death of a friend, Gilgamesh began to search for immortality and met an immortal man named I can't ever pronounce this word Uptimish, right? Uptimish Pitum,
Anophatism.
Anophatism, right? It says whose story is very much like the story of Noah. Now, is this true? No. All right, he didn't meet Noah. All right, he didn't meet, because again, Noah it was only 8 persons. It would have been impossible for him to meet Noah. But again, each nation have their own, input on the story and their own spin of the truth. So it says apparently, optimism. I don't know how you say it, So forgive me for the pronunciation, but optimism had been granted immortality after building a ship called Preserver of Life and surviving the Great Flood. Like Noah's Ark, optimism brought all of his relatives and all species of creatures abroad this ark, right, or aboard the ark to save mankind. Sounds kind of familiar. Some culture floods stories bear only a slight resemblance to the story of Noah's Ark. They maintain the themes of the ark and the angry God. So that's the main point of a lot of stories that you read that pertains to Noah's Ark. It's gonna have an angry God. It's gonna have things that's similar to what we read about in the Bible. It says, but their repopulation stories are widely different. So we're gonna go over a couple ones, So let's get the Aztecs, right? Aztecs, the ancient Issacharites. It says the Aztec flood story shares similarities with with the story of Noah's Ark, with some radical plot twists. And this story, to tell it names,
Damn.
Telekuin, right, warned the man named Notes and his wife Nina of a coming flood. Nada and Nina hollowed out a cypress tree, and Talakanata sealed them inside, telling them that they may only eat one ear of maize each, right? Which I believe is corn. It says here, here's where the story is widely different from others. The earth is flooded, but the people weren't killed. Instead, they were turned into fish after the flood. Nata and Nina disobeyed T- uh, Tikalanen, right, and ate a fish. So Tikalanen turned them into dogs. The story ends with a world essentially starting all over again. Only this time with a hardy fish population and a couple of dogs. So that's folly, it's madness, it's off. Nonetheless, it's similar, the beginning part at least, sounds like the account of, Noah and what he went through. Again, it's
Salakia.
off, northern kingdom. You said what?
No, I said Salakia. So it's the Most High didn't give Noah directions. It was to Titlaquan. He gave them directions and gave them what to eat, what they couldn't eat, and then turned them into fish.
And it's madness,
Wow.
you know. Hey, again, during this time, Northern Kingdom Island was bad. They was all in idolatry. It was going off. So, it's car was going off. Nonetheless, even this shows how millenniums later, years and centuries later, they still had certain accounts of the flood. You have the Greeks. And I'm not gonna read all these, I'm gonna probably just scan through some. But you got the Greeks, you got the Akkadians, we just read, you got the epics of Gilgamesh and their writings. Every nation has an account of the flood. So next time somebody say, "Oh, the flood that never happened," the Bible is not real. Well, that means that they don't believe in history because the flood is an actual historical account that every nation, ancient civilization has records of. So now you got the Greeks, right? It says Zeus, the king of the gods, was displeased with the human population, or the uh, Pelagians, which is a catch-all term for the indigenous people of the Aegean region. Zeus told uh, Diocletian, right, the son of Prometheus, to construct an ark for himself and his wife, Pyphora, who also happened to be Dunkel's cousin. After 9 days of flooding, the world was destroyed, and the ark rested on the top of Mount Parnassus. When the waters receded, Dunklin and his cousin wife offered a sacrifice to Zeus to learn how to repopulate the earth. Zeus told them, all right, Zeus told them to throw stones over their shoulders. Like the stones thrown by Deucalion became men, those thrown behind Pyphora became women, which was relatively titty and magical way to explain the repopulation of the earth while skirting the whole incest issue. So that's off, right? They repopulated the earth through incest,
That's carnal.
right? Now, according to the law, I'm gonna say this now. According to the law, it's not off to marry your cousin. Abraham did it. Isaac, Jacob, the whole Davidic seed line. That's something within our culture. But Esau, he like to add spins on it to just make stuff sound off, demonic, wicked. Throwing stones behind your shoulder, and they becoming men, and the sheep
That's
throw it behind your
carnal.
shoulder, they becoming women. Is that in the Bible? No. Did that happen? No. But what it does sound like is a similar account to Noah's Ark. So, like I said, I'm not gonna read this whole thing. You got the Asians in there. You have the Hindus, the Chinese. You can read this own article on your time, but every nation, again, like I said, has accounts. And if you actually look at this image, it looked like the so-called black man, too. Show you how Jake was, around on the time of the Greeks. I don't know what he's doing right there, but you know, we can go to the next article though. I just want to get a quick precept. Let's go to Revelation 12 and 16.
Mm-hmm.
Revelation 12 and verse 16. So the proof is in the pudding. All right, the proof is in the pudding. It says, "And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth." So when it says the earth helped the woman, it means the archaeological findings, all right, the engravements. When men go out and they study, the different accounts of history, and they find things in the earth that support the Bible. That's what it's talking about when it says the earth helped the woman. All right, in this context, the woman is Israel. We read the first verse. All right, it's Israel, the one with the 12 stars, meaning the 12 tribes. All right, the 3 stars that were, cast out. So that's speaking about Israel right here, in the earth through all the archaeological findings is helping Israel in the last days cast out the lies that the dragon is spewing forth. Who's the dragon? The Roman Empire. This modern day Roman Empire. All right, and we seeing how, like how the brother pulled up, got the GRP that has these different technological tools showing you the layouts of the ark and things of that nature. Is all bringing the Bible to life, and it's the Lord. All in all, it's the Lord making His name magnified amongst the inhabitants of the land. What you got about?
Khan, we'll get the book of Psalms, chapter 45. Right, the Lord dwells from generation to generation. So the Lord's work and his divine work is going to be talked about, man, all throughout time. This Psalm chapter 45 and verse number 17. And it says, and it's talking about King David, and it says, I will make thy name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore shall the people praise thee forever and ever. And this is not just talking about within Israel. The Lord's work and his doing has been seen throughout all generations. His name, what he stands for. When the Lord told Noah to build the ark, for he was going to flood the earth, as you can see, even the Aztecs, they have a so-called flood story. The Greeks have a so-called flood story. All these nations within their history, the Lord's work is going to be remembered, whether it's during the time of Noah, whether it's during the time of the ancient Greeks, right? Whether it's during the time of the Aztecs and the Mayans, or whether it's during this time in the American Empire, we're still remembering the Lord in his generations, right? Let me go to Psalms 145 and 4. Let's actually get this in Psalms 144:4. They're going to praise the Lord's works in all generations. It's Psalm chapter 145 and verse number 4. It says, one generation shall praise thy works to another and shall declare thy mighty acts. And we're literally reading about these different cultures in these different time periods, declaring the works of the Lord, declaring the mighty acts of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahshua, your God, my God, our God. They're still talking about his works upon the earth. And they're right? They're passing it down to their children. And although they twist up the stories a little bit, we know where it's actually coming from, and we know the origin and the source, and that comes from our holy book, man. Read it again. One generation shall praise thy works to another and shall declare thy mighty acts. Let me see if I can jump down. Verse 13. Actually, let me jump down to verse 12. It says, to make known to the sons of men, right? The children of men, not just Israel, but all these nations, his mighty acts and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Why? The kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth through all generations. The Lord's dominion is forever. It's all throughout the generations of man, from the time of Adam, right? Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, right? Lamech, Noah. It goes all throughout, all the way down to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Even till now, the Lord, we're still declaring the mighty acts of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahshua. They still talk. They have a whole, we just went into it. They have a whole task force called Noah's Ark Scans. And remember, this was over 8,000 years ago. And they're still devising departments just to prove that these things are real, man. Still talking about it. You can look this up. They're dedicated to it. The men probably went to, got, PhDs and all types of backgrounds just to uncover the mysteries of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahshua, because the Lord's work is from generation to generation, and he's all throughout generations. But you got it.
We'll go to the next one.
Right, but that's more so we touched on Noah. So let's get this real quick. Lot's wife. All right, Sodom and Gomorrah. So we proved that Noah's Ark is real. It's real. It's there. And you can link it up with the precepts. Now we got Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's wife. All right, an everlasting memorial, right, for those that should live ungodly. Right, this is DannyTheDigger.com. Lot's wife pillar, right? Lot's wife pillar is a popular name given to a giant pillar of salt and brown soil, visible from the road. Goes south of Masada. By local tradition, this is Lot's wife who turned into a pillar of salt by disobeying God's commandment, as told in Genesis chapter 19, and verse number 26. Now, if you never read Genesis, the 19th chapter, it goes in to how Lot, to Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 cities, really 5 cities being destroyed by Yahweh Shem Yahshua for sodomy, right? We're going to get into it as well. And it says geologist Dr. Amos Frumklin suggests that a collapse of a cave some 4,000 years ago from a massive scale earthquake caused the pillar, right? In the book of Genesis, a pillar of salt is associated with the Most High's destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Some suggest locating these sites on the opposite side of the Dead Sea at Bad Edera. It is interesting to note that archaeologists date the destruction of Bab Edera to the same time as the formation of the pillar. Possibly due to the earthquake, it is possible that the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's wife evolved from a combination of these events. So they're trying to put 2 and 2 together. They're trying to say, well, was it earthquake, or it's the Most High's destruction. Let me jump down. Okay, right here. Yep. Reaching Lot's wife pillar. The pillar is located along a cliff on the western side of the road. Go about 25 miles south of Masada. Let me see where Masada is. Kind of look that up real quick. Masada, Lot's wife location. Right? It says it's located on Mount Sodom. See that? Mount Sodom, still there. Along the southwestern shore of the Dead Sea in Israel, it is a natural geological formation near the area traditionally associated with the biblical Sodom and Gomorrah. So the East are going to say it's natural. But hey, we know what it is. Situated south of the ancient fortress of Masada. So you can look this up. Mount Sodom's a real place, right? And it's located next to the Dead Sea. That's where you got the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? In the Qumran caves. A lot of archaeological findings is by the Dead Sea. And you can see this. They got a picture of it, which they would say to believe is Lot's wife. All right? Go back to this. I think that's it on that. Rakan, it's a shorter article, but they're telling you the location and they're telling you what they think it might be and how long ago it was. Let me actually get a precept in the book of Genesis. All right, to kind of get into it. If brothers and sisters never read Genesis, the 19th chapter, Abraham and Lot kind of split up, and Lot went towards Sodom and Gomorrah. And the Lord heard of the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah. Let me actually go to Genesis chapter 18. All right, this is Genesis chapter 18. And now I'll start at verse number 20. And it says, and the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous. It's going to tell you what their sin is too. I will go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Right? Because he knew that his brother Lot, nephew Lot, was living in Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 24, peradventure there be 50 righteous men within the city, wilt thou also destroy and not spare for the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous from the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered, said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which in but dust is ashes. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, if I find there 40 and 5, I would not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again and said, peradventure, there shall be found 40 there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said unto them, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure, there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he's going down and down in number. And it's going to show you how wicked this place is. And he said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I would not destroy for 20's sake. So he went from 50 to 20. Verse 32. And he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. So he said, if there was only 10 people, I ain't going to destroy it. But you're going to find it was only one. It was a lot. Vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. Right? This Genesis chapter 19. And I'm going to start at verse number 1. And I'm going to kind of skim through this. Right? If you want to read the whole thing on your time, I encourage you to get the real history. Right? But just to kind of provide some context, right? It says, and there came 2 angels at Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, behold, now my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we abide in the street all night. Why? Because they were on an espionage mission. They were there to spy out the land. They were there to see what was going on, to make a report, and bring it back to Yahbashim Yahshai on whether this place was extremely wicked or not, man. Right? But it's going to tell you what Lot did. And it says he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him and entered into his house. And he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round about, both old and young, and all the people from every quarter. So his house was surrounded with everyone in the city. It's a lot of people. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in unto thee this night? Bring them out unto us that we may know them. And as we always say, this isn't for them to, sit down and they can get their names, who they are as a person. How did they get to Lot? Are they from Sodom and Gomorrah? No, this means that they wanted to, lay down with these men. Homosexuality. So let me jump down. Right? Verse 13. What the angel says, it says, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up and get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed as one that mocketh unto his sons-in-law. Right? They didn't believe him. And as we say, the Lord is going to destroy this place. They don't believe us. So this is not far-fetched. Right? Verse 15. And when the morning arose, and the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. So kind of teleported Lot and his family out the city. But now we're going to get to the part where his wife turned back. We jump down. Right, verse 22. Hasten thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come hither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen up upon the earth, which when Lot entered into Zoar, then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and all the fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So if you're not privy to what we're going into, Lot's wife being a pillar of salt in the history, when you read Genesis, the 19th chapter, it's talking about how the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah for their homosexuality, their wickedness. But Lot's wife looked back at the city. And it's spiritual, because why did she look back when the Lord said don't? Maybe she had, her heart was inclined there. There were certain things that she missed. Her mind was so far in Sodom and Gomorrah that something propelled her to turn around when the Lord said, don't turn around. And we compare that to doing this work. When we're in this truth, what are you looking back for? Why are you looking back into the world? Why are you looking back into the things that you had? Let me go to Luke chapter 9 and verse 62. When you pick up this plow, when you pick up this work, this is your life now. There is no looking back. There is no, I miss A, B, and C, and where I used to have A, B, and C. And you know what? I can still, no. Your worldly friends, that worldly job you used to have. When the Lord destroys America, I'm led to believe you're going to have some Israelites that look back, and God forbid, Lord willing, I'm not one of them. Brothers is not one of them, but you don't want to look back, especially in these last times, because this place is about to go. This is Luke chapter 9 and verse 61. And another also said, Lord, I will follow thee, but let me first go bid them farewell, which are at home at my house. And Yahushua said unto him, no man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of God. So if you looking back after doing this work, you looking back after the Lord said, don't look back, then you're not fit for the kingdom. The Lord's going to destroy you with the rest of the children of men and the rest of the wicked. Your mind can't be in this earth anymore. Let me go to Micah chapter 2 and verse 10. So this is spiritual, man. That's why we have to go into the history, because it applies to these times now. You don't want to be looking back. No more looking back.
I got a quick precept after you.
Is Micah chapter 2 and verse 10. And it says, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with a sore destruction. So if your mind is still wrapped up in this world, still wrapped up in your flesh, carnal, temporary things, you're not watching prophecies, you're not looking at prophecies, you're not examining, you're not doing your best to fast and pray and ward off demons. You don't even know what demons you're dealing with, but you're so caught up in, the drama and the current events of what's going on around you, instead of what's going on in this earth pertaining to your people, prophecy-wise. You're going to get destroyed. You're going to die. Being turned into a pillar of salt for an everlasting memorial to all the sons of men upon the earth is a sore destruction. But you got it.
Can you go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 10 and verse number 4?
Man, I was looking for that precept.
Wisdom of Solomon 10. That's right, man. Even our fathers, they have all these accounts in writing. Our fathers have all of these accounts in writing. So it's good to go back and read, man. All right, this Wisdom of Solomon 10 and verse 4. First dealing with the flood. I got the point I made earlier again. It's always the flood, and then it lead right back into Sodom and Gomorrah. Those two big events changed the world, man. So you're going, in the precepts and the scriptures, you're going to keep seeing those back to back. That's another witness, right? Wisdom of Solomon 10 and 4. Fools caused the earth being drowned with the flood. Wisdom again preserved it and directed the course of the righteous, and that placed in a piece of wood of small value. Right, that piece of wood and the small value, that's that art. It says, moreover, the nations and their wicked conspiracy being confounded, she found out the righteous and preserved them blameless unto God, and kept him strong against his tender compassion toward his son. When the ungodly perished, she delivered the righteous man who fled from the fire which fell down upon the 5 cities. Now this is going into Lot and his wife and his daughters. It said when the ungodly perished, those are the wicked individuals that got slew, that got overthrown, Sodom and Gomorrah, Zohar, and the other remaining cities. It says she delivered the righteous man who fled from the fire, which fell down upon the 5 cities, of whose wickedness, even to this day, 2026, and this during the time of Solomon. I believe Solomon came into power around 970 BC. So back then it was around, and even today it's around. Even to this day, that wasteland that smoketh is a testimony and plants bearing fruit that never come to ripeness. That's why over there in Sodom and Gomorrah, they still finding them sulfur balls. Ain't no plants, ain't no trees, ain't no apple orchards, and you can't find any vine trees. That's all done away with. Again, it says even to this day, and a standing pillar of salt is a monument of an unbelieving soul. Lot's wife, still there. She was there during the time of Solomon, and she's there today, like how the brother went over it. That salt amount, that's not just a rock right there. Even these professional, I forgot what they call it, right? They study the ground or whatnot, but even they said that, that's salt. It's not dirt. It's large minerals or so. How did that get right there? The Lord put it right there. Lord probably had a chariot come through, kept seeing her look back. She kept looking back, and they zapped it and left her there for a monument to this day. And that's spiritual. She's still there to this day. There's been no hurricane, no natural disaster, and the Lord he wrote it in stone. He's gonna be there, forever until he return. You know, so that's an account right there. But you got it.
Con. Yeah, man. Imagine that's your name forever. Imagine that's your name forever, man. You're an everlasting memorial on what not to do. The Lord can do that to you. You get destroyed with this place. The Lord, I mean, your name will be everlasting on what not to do, and the righteous name will live on forever. Right. So we want to be on the other side of that. We want to be on the other side of that. I had another one article. Did you have one? You had one on this, did you?
Con.
I'm doing this one.
Hold on. Yeah, you can scroll down. Keep scrolling. All right, keep scrolling. Go to the part on. All right, keep going, Salakia.
I want to look at this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Go up just a little bit. I want to start around that area right there.
Which one? Right here?
Oh, yeah, right there where the picture is. Just go up just a little bit more. Start under that video. Yeah, right there. That's good. Right, so it says Collins Research. So this is the website Armstrong Institution of Biblical Archaeology. So they look like that's Amalek too. So they do in-depth findings and in-depth research. Had these different archaeologists come and search out lands and the seas and find these things out, right? So it says Collins research led him to discover the paradigm. I say that.
Where?
The paradigm shift.
Paradigm.
Right, the paradigm shift in the early 20th century. It says the southern location, it turned out, was not the quote-unquote traditional site at all. In fact, the 19th century geographers consistently placed Sodom and Gomorrah north and east of the Dead Sea, and continuing on into the 20th century. In spite of Albert's influence, biblical geographers were still struggling with this notion of a southern Sodom. Back in the 19th century, virtually every single explorer, scholar who went to that area, Thompson, Coder, Wilson, and so many others, they put Sodom at the northeast of the Dead Sea. Collins said there was one, right? There was one expedition, Edward R. Robinson, who posted the southern location and whose work influenced Albright. According to Collins, Albright has so much influence still. It wasn't that everybody went that way. So if you didn't know, right, Sodom, Gomorrah, that region, it's located by the Red Sea. Now, real quick, you go to Second Esdras 5. You even read about the Red Sea being called the Sodomite Sea. All right, Second Esdras 5. I want to say that's verse 7. So Second Esdras 5 and 7. It says the Sodomite Sea shall cast out fish and make a noise in the night, which they have not known. It's like which many have not known, but they shall hear the voice thereof. Right, and we read Second Esdras 5 is going into the last days. So you read about the Sodomite Sea, certain people, they read this verse, they say, okay, what is that? What is the Sodomite Sea? I don't find Sodomite Sea on the map. Sodomite Sea is just another name for the Red Sea. And the reason why it's called that is because Sodom and Gomorrah is located in that region. As the article is saying, some people, they see it as if it's the northern region of the Red Sea. Right, other scholars and archaeological findings say it's to the southeast of the Red Sea. Nonetheless, that region around the Red Sea is where Sodom and Gomorrah, that ancient city, resided. So you can go back to the article real quick. Let's go down under that picture. I actually want to show the picture actually. And then you see on the picture, this is where you see the plains of the 5 cities. All right, you see the plains of the 5 cities, and you see Zohar. Now, real quick, you go to Deuteronomy 29. Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verse number 23. So this is Deuteronomy 29 and verse 23. It says, and that whole land thereof is brimstone. Let's start at 22, right? It says, so that generation to come to your children, that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come up from the far land shall say, when they see the plagues of that land and the sickness which the Lord had laid upon it, and that whole land thereof is brimstone and salt. What land is he talking about? Let's go and expand. It says, and burning that is not sown, nor beareth, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zobayim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. So when we read about the plain of the 5 cities, that's what it's speaking about. All right, that we just seen in that picture that we read about in Wisdom of Solomon, the 10th chapter, to read about in Genesis, the 19th chapter. These are the other cities that get caught up in there. You know, a lot of people think it was just Sodom and Gomorrah. Those were the two main cities that got destroyed, but the neighboring cities, the destruction was so bad, even the neighboring cities around it, they got caught up in there too. So you can go back to that picture. Again, that's what Solomon was referring to when we read Wisdom of Solomon 10 and verse 4 and down. You can go back to the picture real quick, just to show it. So we see the plain of the 5 cities plus Zohar, that's the region where it was in. All right, you can scroll down. I'm gonna read a little bit.
I opened it up a little bit more.
Okay, Con. Yeah, see that right there.
Hey, if if you recognize, if you do some, if you have some scholarship, what area is this right here? This will be, the same cities that Joshua conquested, right? You got the Gibeonites where he made a covenant with, right? This people right here that he took down Ai, right? You had their the foot upon their neck. Bethel, yeah, Shiloh, right? Bethlehem, the Jebusites, Hebron. So this will be the what you would call the modern day land of Israel right here. But I want to bring that out as well. Hey, this would be with the Manassites would have inhabited, but Khan.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Right, so it says the inheritance of Lot. Right. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to read the first part because the rest is just quoting the accounts that was already read. No, but I'm going to just read the first paragraph. It says the key in Genesis 13. Genesis 13 is a verbal map observed by Dr. Collins. It is specifically written conclusively by the author to take the reader to the site of Sodom. Right, that's that image that it just shown. Genesis 13 records the account of Abram and his nephew Lot parting ways because the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. Note that this conversation takes place in the region of Bethel and Ai, the central hill country, some 20 kilometers north of Jerusalem. Now you can go to the next article, dealing with Josephus. Now you can scroll down. All right, keep going. So I go. It's one more article dealing with Josephus actually, because I meant to bring that one out earlier. I can bring it out real quick. I meant to bring that one out earlier. I'll bring it out real quick.
What this one?
That not the one before that you just had up. Because I believe Josephus, he also had an account on the flood. So I'll just bring it out real quick. You can scroll up real quick. And if you don't know who Josephus is, all right, we went over Josephus a couple times. But for those who don't know, they would be known as what scholars call, one of the Jewish scholars of the early uh, first century, right? It was around during the time of the Pharisees, eyewitness to a lot of things, 70 AD, eyewitness to the apostles. He was around during the time where Yahweh Shah was, on the scene. So it says Mount Ararat. I know I'm backtracking, but just real quick. It says Mount Ararat. Easternmost Turkey has long been widely perceived as a resting place in Noah's Ark. Modern geological studies have virtually disproven a worldwide flood, yet this has not distorted the faithful form of remaining fast to a literal interpretation of the Genesis story flood. It's been said that virtually all Armenians believe Mount Ararat to be the resting place of Noah's Ark, which was the picture or the image that the brother, showed. It says, but how did this mount acquire to that fame? After all, Genesis account simply takes the original Hebrew that the ark came to rest in the hill country of Eurotu. The name was associated in earlier kingdom that existed where Armenia is today, north of the kingdoms of Nineveh and Assyria. So when you scroll down a little bit, he actually visited that site. You scroll down a little bit. I want to get right to the point where it says he visited the site. Keep scrolling. All right, that's it right there, yo. It says when Flavian Josephus was a teenager, Armenia was a client state of Rome, a sworn ally but not taxed, and much larger extent today than today's Armenia. Mount Ararat lay the center of the kingdom. Here's a statement from Josephus, right? And this man, he was a Jew from the tribe of Levi. All right. It says Josephus that he inserted in his Genesis flood account, mostly paraphrasing. After this, the ark rested on the top of a certain mount in Armenia. However, the Armenians call this place, I don't read Greek, so I don't know what that is, but they called it that. It says this place of descent of the ark being saved in that place, it remains are shewed there by the inhabitants to this day. So they say in 2007, these archaeological, scholars, they done found it. Josephus and the men of old, they already knew about it. They was already there, But the reason I bring that out is, like I said, I meant to go over that. Nonetheless, Josephus, he has an account of that, and also you can go back to the article now. He also had an account on Lot's wife and Sodom and Gomorrah, and things of that nature. So you can go to the article dealing with Lot and Josephus in this account with that.
Right here.
Kanye. Scroll down to where it says Josephus on the location of Sodom. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Yeah, right there. So this is Josephus on a location of Sodom. The first mention Josephus makes of Sodom in his Jewish war written around 80 CE. So he wrote this right after the Romans colonized Judea. It says, as he recounts the capture of Jericho in 68 CE by the Roman general Vespasian, Josephus makes a discretion to describe the geography area of the Dead Sea. All right, so let me read past that. I'm gonna get right to the point. Let me see. I'm gonna read the highlighted part. I'm gonna read too much. It says Josephus returns to Sodom and the Jewish antiquities, right, where he retells the biblical story in detail. He paraphrases Genesis 13 and locating Sodom in the plain of the River Jordan. This is where Tel Hammam is indeed located. Josephus presently describes the destruction of Sodom, extending his account in the war, and it's what he wrote in his writings. It says God then hurled his bow upon the city, and along with his inhabitants burnt it to the ground, obliterating the land with a similar conflagration, as I've previously related in my account of the Jewish war. But Lot's wife, who during the flight was continually turning around towards the city, curious to observe its fate. Notwithstanding God's prohibition of such action, was changed into a pillar of salt. I have seen this pillar which remains to this day. This is his account, all right, of Genesis, the 19th chapter. Just read his first account of Genesis, the 6th and the 7th chapter. So again, Josephus, he's seen these things. He went to these places, and he's describing it with the overthrow of the Romans, how the Romans overthrew Jerusalem and Jericho in 68 CE, how they overthrew Israel. He's comparing it on how he remembered the time when he visited Sodom and Gomorrah, and it reminded him about how the Lord overthrew that. He said he's seen Lot's wife. So that same pillar that the brother showed up, don't think that's a rock. All right, it's not just, something that was there. That was, people that just went over there and just made that was there when Josephus was walking the earth. Everybody knew about it. These are new findings. Well, scholars like to say new findings now. But these ancient scholars, these men of old, they already knew about these things. They seen these things. These things still exist to this day. All right. And I also had a short that I sent you. I wanted to, yeah.
Recent archaeological findings reveal unique welcome to the heart of the Dead Sea region, where the lost cities of Sodom and Gomorrah may have been uncovered. Recent archaeological findings reveal unique sulfur balls here, nearly 100% pure and igniting with a mesmerizing deep blue flame. These are not your average sulfur deposits. They burn hotter and cleaner than anything found elsewhere on Earth. Ancient historian Josephus claimed that remnants of these cities were still visible some 2,000 years after their...
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure. Before the flood came, the Bible says God created the earth to be inhabited. Today, 3% of the world is habitable. 71%.
Oh, no.
Welcome.
Edom might start talking.
I also make a point on what he said in the video. Those sulfur balls to this day, they still burning. Those and really that's brimstone. They calling it sulfur balls. But remember, when the brother read the account, Genesis 19, the Lord sent fire and brimstone. You can play it again.
Flame. These rising deep blue, 100% pure and ignite balls here, nearly wings reveal unique sulfur balls here, nearly 100% pure and igniting with a mesmerizing deep blue flame. These are not your average sulfur deposits.
You want to hear?
Welcome.
Yeah, and that deep blue flame, when you go into fire, according to the temperature, it affects the color of the flame. So the hotter the fire is, the more the colors change. So when it's blue, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when it's blue, that's the highest temperature. So when Sodom and Gomorrah was on fire, imagine it going up in blue flames. I'm led to believe that's how America gonna go up in blue flames. Sometimes I'll be sitting back and I'll be meditating how glorious the downfall of this place gonna be. All these different colors, how hot it's gonna be. It's all these different flames. They said they still line these sulfur balls today that's over there. Sodom and Gomorrah got overthrown years ago, thousands of years ago. And those sulfur balls are still over there and they're still catching on fire. How much more when it first happened? That's why all those cities around it got overthrown. It was so all hell was breaking loose. Lord was probably sending chariots through there, angels through there, sulfur brimstone, which is the sulfur balls coming down. So all these are real accounts, but you can play it.
Incinerated. When people got incinerated.
Flame. These are not your average sulfur deposits. They burn hotter and cleaner than anything found elsewhere on Earth. Ancient historian Josephus claimed that remnants of these cities were still visible in his time, some 2,000 years after their destruction. Today we find extensive ash layers and unusual geological formations composed of calcium sulfate, evidence of extreme heat consistent with the biblical accounts of divine judgment. The presence of charcoal and ash deposits speaks volumes about the catastrophic events that led to the...
They still got burned wood over there. This looks exactly like as if you was to pull this out of a campfire.
It's like they said that it's divine judgment. They said it's hotter than stuff that you see on earth.
Still there. It didn't erode away. Again, an everlasting memorial of judgment from Yahweh Ba'Shem Mashiach Malak Yahushua.
Their fiery end. Could this be the ultimate proof of Sodom and Gomorrah? If you found this journey enlightening, be sure to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing archaeological discoveries.
See that?
Yeah, so you can't make this stuff up, man. You cannot make it up.
You got more on this?
That's all I wanted on there.
Because I want to touch on that too. Yeah, about the brimstone and the burn. Yeah, there's no other place on the earth that you can find that. All right. And yeah, I brought out Deuteronomy 29:23. It says the evidence, archaeology, excavation, and chemistry. All right. Scroll down. The ashes of Sodom and Gomorrah have a story to tell. Explorers and archaeologists have found the evidence of man-made structures. The ash heaps resemble houses, temples, walls, gates, and statues. Their geometric shapes and angles are visible to the naked eye. Such formations are not normal geological structures. Those aren't the kinds of things that are naturally formed in nature. So they're saying, hey, it's obvious that, first of all, these things were people's cribs, right? Temples, walls, gates. These things are not naturally formed in just nature. Something had to happen, right? In heaps and ashes. Right, in heaps and ashes. I want to try to jump down with the sofa, right? So like you see, it's all white. And it says a lot of ashes in the area appear to be off color where people today wouldn't easily recognize that this is salt. The weather changes things over time. The winds and rains of the region for nearly 4,000 years would have caused the brown dust from the surrounding terrain to alter the color of the top layer in the cities of ash. This would explain why many areas appear tan in color instead of white. However, as demonstrated in the photo above, after a little digging in bright white powder, it's like a bright white powder immediately appears. So as soon as you touch it, it's a white substance. This, comes to fruition, and that shows you something. That should say something to you, right? And it says a more extensive survey of the ruins with innumerable balls of brimstone embedded in the ash. They still got it says innumerable. I mean, it's a lot of them. It's over 4,000 years. Amateur explorers without any equipment, they didn't need some special equipment, have found many fully preserved brimstones conspicuously appearing in the ashy grounds on the stratified walls of the ash heaps. These are unique and fully preserved brimstones. Here's the point: that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. So I mean, it's obvious. The Lord burned and incinerated Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? I want to get this one precept real quick. I think it's in the book of Matthew chapter 9. The Lord said, "It shall be more tolerable for this generation than in Sodom and Gomorrah." Let me actually get Matthew chapter 10. If I can't find it, that's cool. It came to my mind. Yep, Matthew chapter 10 and verse number 14. "And whosoever shall not receive you nor hear his words, when you depart out of thy house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city." So you got to think about it. We're going into Sodom and Gomorrah. We're going into the ashes that's still there 4,000 years ago, lit with blue flames. People getting turned into salt pillars for everlasting memorial. The Lord still has it preserved for the generation of man to declare his acts on the earth of what he did to that city. And he was talking about the Roman Empire during this time, but this is the Roman Empire. Sodom and Gomorrah will have more grace and mercy than America. That should tell you something. This place that's still found with white ashes has more grace and mercy, even though it's lit up with blue flames and left for an everlasting memorial to the earth of wickedness. This place was better than what's going to happen to America. That's deep. That should tell us what we got to do. Right? So you can see this Edomite chiseling out some sulfur.
All right, chiseling out his judgment.
Yup. Lord got him learning about how you're going to be incinerated.
Right.
Look at this. Look at this sulfur, man. You throw that in some fire, you might blow something up. You will see some divine fire. And they're gonna show you that this is not from a volcano. Because why? This is white. Volcano sulfur is yellow. It says there has never been any geothermal activity based in this area. There are no volcanoes. There's no volcanoes in the area. There is no explanation for how these stones of extremely pure sulfur got there, except that the Most High God rained down fire and brimstone from heaven. They have no explanation, man. They have to chuck it up to the Bible. They can't. The Lord didn't give them no other reason. This is not the kind of sulfur that can be found at volcanoes. You see that? Volcanic sulfur is yellow in color and usually around 40% sulfur. The brimstones found at the cities of the plain is white in color and around 94 to 98% pure sulfur. Man, that's lethal right there. Volcanoes get hot, and that's only 40%. So it shows you this is almost 50%. This is more than 50% more hotter than volcanoes. It's basically what it is. Damn. That's all you can say is damn. Right? The flammability of the brimstone found at Sodom and Gomorrah is the visible proof of its purity. The brimstones found in the stratified walls of the ash heaps can be lit on fire without removing them from their embedded location. They don't have to take it out the wall. You light it on fire, the wall gonna light up. This has been repeatedly demonstrated by explorers in the various documentaries videos available online. And see, look, the Edomite just lit the wall on fire. See that? Even though the brimstone is on fire, the flame cannot be detected by the naked eye in the daytime because it's a very hot blue flame. The brimstone will burn until it melts into a liquid form, and then the liquid brimstone will burn until it vaporizes. Damn. Unless the flame of the burning brimstone somehow extinguished in the process of events taking place. So let me get this real quick. See that? Blue is the hottest commonly observed flame color, indicating the temperatures typically ranging from 1400 degrees Celsius or 2500 degrees Fahrenheit to 5432 degrees Fahrenheit or 3000 Celsius. That's hot right there. These high temperatures, often seen in gas stoves and blowtorches, result from efficient combustion within a flame. The hottest part is usually the light blue inner core. So these sulfur lights up blue immediately. That's how hot it is. It shows you flame temperature hierarchy, coolest to hottest. So dark red is the coolest, right? Orange and yellow. This is what you will see on your stove. You know, you're cooking. You know, you may be cooking some lamb bacon, some turkey bacon. You may be cooking some lamb chops, and you just look at the fire. It's yellow. But white is the next one. White is hot, but blue is extremely hot. Blue is the hottest color. And guess what? This one lights up very hot. This is very hot blue. So the Lord is that just shows you the Lord is very angry with their sin in Sodom and Gomorrah. For the Lord to send down the hottest flames, and not just the hottest flame in one part, the hottest flame throughout 5 cities, man, in a sea of fire. See that? This is a nice photo right here. Right? It says it vaporized the cities of the plain. and they turned their buildings into salt. You know, now they got some molecular now they got some molecular stuff, but I just want to kind of get that point real quick. I just kind of want to get that point. So as you can see, you know, this is proof. This is true. I gotta call them 2 years at a time. Yeah, this is true. These things actually happen. Noah's Ark actually happened. The Lord destroyed the earth with the water. Sodom and Gomorrah actually happened. The Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah with blue fire, man. And these things have to be left for a memorial for us to learn. We have to learn from these things. Let me get one last precept real quick, and I'm going to give it to you. This is Romans chapter 15 and number 4 in the NLT. Such things were written in the scriptures long ago to teach us, and the scriptures gives us hope and encouragement as we wait patiently for the Most High's promises to be fulfilled. So you gotta understand, these things were in the scriptures were written long ago to teach us these things. It was there to teach us, for us to understand and to be applied to our lives as we move forward, waiting for Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua to come and restore and redeem his people and the promises which he made to destroy America and the rest of this earth. So we got to understand that. When we read these scriptures, not reading it as if, man, that's happened one time, it's not going to happen again. No, it will happen again. That's why it's written. That's why we go into the history, the evidence of the Lord destroying things of old, because he's going to destroy this place like the rest. But you got it.
Kanye, let's go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. Classic. All right, so, after, listening to that should make you fear the Most High. I mean, like how the brother said, Sodom and Gomorrah have more mercy than what America's gonna have, and what Sodom and Gomorrah received, then that didn't even look like mercy. This is gonna be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah than it is for this present kingdom. And if they get overthrown with, fire and brimstone, and 5 cities got destroyed, and we see that count with Noah, and the Lord destroyed everybody off the earth and saved 8 persons. I mean, this is real destructive anger from the Most High. And the Lord said, you know what? I think I'm going to do that again. You know what? I know I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to do it soon. And it's going to be in the same kingdom, America, Babylon, where you are right now. You watching this live. It's going to be in Babylon the Great. Not only in Babylon, but the Lord's going to destroy and consume this whole earth. So that should let you know the anger and the vehement, zeal that is coming with it. So that's Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. It says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. You just fear the Most High, because you see the judgments of the Lord. We fear the Most High, we fear his judgments, man. So, you keep that in the back of your mind. Remember who you dealing with. Remember who your God is. Remind yourself about your God. He don't play around. He not, he's not white Jesus and not these other guys that just do whatever they want and let you do whatever you want. We're talking about Yahweh. So fear the Most High, keep the commandments, and, focus on that deliverance. Because if you ain't doing that, then the stuff we just went over today, that's going to be a judgment. That's going to be our judgment if we don't apply these things. So fear the Most High, keep these commandments. That's all I got, though.
All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Lord willing, you was edified. Most High willing, keep the Sabbath holy. Right? And Most High willing, you enjoy the Shabbat. As you know, all these things that are happening in the earth continue to keep watch. Got the new moon coming up next week, Most High willing. All right, Wednesday night at sundown. And you got Passover coming up. Right? Make sure we examine ourselves, lest you walk naked before the Lord and you eat of the Passover meal unworthily. But with that, we'd like to give our honor and glory and praise to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua and bid a mighty strong shalom.
Shalom.